Hello, welcome, and thanks for joining. This is Tips for the Transition, the Career Roadmap podcast. I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan, and I started this show 6 seasons ago to create resources for women to help them navigate career and life challenges with more ease and grace, and to know they are not alone. So we are here each week to inspire women worldwide to show up in their lives more confident, resilient, and brave. So, as you eavesdrop on this conversation, if you want more information, check out the show notes below so that you can find ways to connect with my guest and me. So, highly accomplished women leaders balance lots of things simultaneously, and sometimes things slip through the cracks. While we're ensuring everything is at work is humming along perfectly, people in our lives might feel neglected or deprioritized, maybe invisible. Our relationships can suffer unless we pay attention to them. So, this week's guest, Michele Lisenbury Christensen, is a master relationship coach who helps driven, growth oriented women discover the power they have to change their relationships, create the closeness and communication they want, and use the aliveness that comes from that to make an even more significant impact in their worlds. Over the last 25 years, Michele has helped more than 2,000 executives, business owners, and their spouses solve the unique relationship challenges that busy, ambitious people face. So, let's talk about prioritizing our relationships. Hello, Michele.
Hi, so glad to be here, Maria. Thanks for
Oh,
having me.
thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it. This is an important conversation that we're going to have, and I am delighted to get started. So, would you tell us just a little bit about this is the Cliff Notes version of your story, and tell us how helping people with their relationships became so important to you?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I have been a leadership coach for more than 25 years now, and I helped a lot of people with their teams, with their latest reorg, with all the things that they faced professionally. And many of my clients, as we worked together, grew to trust me deeply. And sometimes they would show up to a coaching session and say, I know we're supposed to talk about my team today, but can we talk about my marriage? And they would always say it sort of conspiratorially, almost guiltily. And I was always tickled to be invited into that level of intimacy, to be trusted with something so vulnerable and precious. And what I found was that there were specific patterns that I saw over and over again as leaders talked about what hurt most on the home front, where they felt unsuccessful as spouses and as parents, and where they felt frustrated with their partners. So I learned some patterns, and then I got way more training because really I was a leadership coach. I wasn't a relationship coach. So I went back and got mentored and certified to really be an expert on the love side. But I love being able to bring together that understanding of what your career is like if you're really a leader, as well as sort of the more general advice for marriage.
Well, I love that you just said that because we really can't separate the two. We can't compartmentalize ourselves to the point where one does not affect the other. So it makes a whole lot of sense for us to bring it together in a way that brings harmony into our lives on both sides. I love
Yes.
that.
Yeah. And what a woman needs from her spouse is very different if she is home all day focused on children versus if she is having a big career of her own and perhaps being a mother as well.
Hmm.
Her needs are very different, and what
Yeah.
she needs to ask her partner for is very different.
All right. So let's talk about some of those unique problems that highly accomplished women face in
Yeah.
their relationships at home. Let's talk about that.
I have a kind of a tagline for it. I call it Superwoman's Heartache. When a woman,
Superwoman, what?
Superwoman's Heartache.
Party. Okay.
Heartache, the heartbreak that,
Oh,
that super
heartbreak.
women uniquely face.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, just that,
Okay.
because when you do so much, when you are highly capable and on all the time,
Mm.
you've really got it together. You're great at organizing. You know what needs done. You keep yourself on task. You're good at keeping other people on task. You lead people at work. When you get home, you want your house to run like a well-oiled machine, and often it doesn't. And unfortunately, sometimes we wind up treating our partners like subordinates, like we're delegating to them. And that doesn't feel good to them because they don't want to be bossed around. And it doesn't feel good to us because we don't actually want a subordinate. We want a partner. We want somebody who thinks as hard as we do about the things that need to get done at home and who can actually handle something soup to nuts from conception through planning to execution. We don't want somebody who we can just delegate one task at a time to, because that leaves so much mental labor on our plates. So women wind up tired, overwhelmed, frustrated, feeling lonely, and resentful. And
Mm.
all of that is a real libido crusher, to say the least. So then it begins to affect our intimate lives and the amount of pleasure that we have. And I believe that all humans, but particularly women, pleasure is one of those essential nutrients. There should be an RDA for pleasure. It's an essential nutrient that if we don't have enough of it, we cannot thrive. We cannot have the best career or life possible.
You know, I resonate so highly with some of the things that you said because I struggled with that when I was a corporate leader, coming home and feeling not knowing how to kind of shut off
Yes.
what I was doing all day long, which was, making sure things were working properly, right?
Yeah,
And it's hard to shut that off.
it
It's a
is.
it's not a natural thing or an easy thing to do.
It's not
So
what the brain wants to do, but the body needs it. And I find that the body is not only sort of the result, but the body can be the pathway that helps us get out of our brains. So some of the things like changing clothes, putting lotion on our hands or washing our faces, brushing our teeth, doing things to signal a physical shift, but also to tell ourselves like, I'm in chill mode, changing into clothes that feel beautiful still, not just sloppy, not just pajamas or sweatpants, but like, this is my lovely self. This is my lover. Not for anybody else, but for us, like what makes you feel fantastic. And clearly, moving your body, exercise, or a bath. But, women often need something fairly quick and efficient, but
yeah,
signaling, I'm going to turn off my business brain. And I'm not going to just be thinking about all the things that need to be done at home either. I deserve some relaxation, some downtime now.
right. I love that. That's such a great tip. And I never really thought about that. I wish I'd known you then.
Me too.
Yeah, but that's such a great idea. Just something that physically, mentally, and emotionally flips the switch,
Yep. Breaks the pattern.
breaks the pattern,
Yeah.
right? Interrupts that pattern.
Draws a
Absolutely.
line. Yeah.
Yep. Draws a line. I love that. Okay. All right. So I know that you facilitate a process called fair play for women and couples to negotiate that mental load you talked about and the invisible labor and how those are shared at work and at home. But first, I'd like for you to just give us a quick idea, definition of what you mean by mental load and invisible labor.
Yeah, sure. These are really important terms, and people who don't know them yet often feel like, "Wow, that is life changing to have a word for that."
Yeah.
So Eve Rodsky is my mentor in this, and she wrote the book Fair Play. So if you want to learn more about it from that avenue, that book is a great resource. But I'm a certified Fair Play facilitator, and we distinguish between mental load and emotional labor. So emotional labor is where I need to regulate myself and not just spew my reactions. So I always think of a flight attendant, right? No matter how obnoxious the passengers are, a flight attendant will be smooth, even, polite. She may be firm, but she's going to, she or he or they, flight attendants of all genders, but we're talking to women in our audience here today. So, that kind of like needing to regulate ourselves in order to mother, in order to lead, in order to spouse at home. That's emotional labor. There's also a lot of emotional labor in families. For instance, who's going to send your mom a birthday card? Who's going to send your partner's mom a birthday card? A lot of those maintaining of connections and thinking through of what are the people's needs. When we have a sick family friend, who's thinking about taking them a meal or joining the meal train, sending them a gift card. That's often what Eve calls the she fault, where in a heterosexual relationship, it's presumed that the woman will do all the maintenance of relationships. And there's not even a good reason why. There's just a lot of precedence historically. And sometimes there's a lot of precedence in our relationships. So it takes some changing to have that emotional labor get split more equitably. And it may be actually literally true that you have more skill than your partner does, especially if they're not female. But it can be done. These are learnable skills. This is not rocket science. It's emotional labor. Then invisible labor is all of that. Emotional labor is sort of a subset, but other invisible labor is let's take kids soccer, for example. Well, when does registration for soccer happen? And how do you find out when it's going to happen? That labor is invisible, right? Getting the kid to the soccer practice on the day of is one thing. And maybe the two of you take equal turns doing that. But who knows where the soccer gear is? Who's thought about the snacks and signed up to provide snacks when it's your turn? Who knows what the team likes and doesn't like? And all of the things, right? All of the conception of all the things that need to happen, and then the planning, the doing, the prep work in the right time frame. All of this is mental labor, and a lot of it is invisible. It's unseen. And then, honestly, there's a lot that happens in marriages where the challenges of remembering, do we have mustard, or what kind of fabric softener do we use? All of those things are labor. They do require effort. They do take time. They are the things that drain you. If you wonder why you're so tired or why you can't, quote, get anything done, you're getting so much done. It's just that it's invisible.
And why you can't sleep at night.
Yes.
Because all of those things are still preying on your mind.
Spinning. Yeah.
All right. So this shared labor challenge is, I would venture to say, it's a player in probably every relationship. And you say it's one of the key factors that kills couples' intimacy and connection. So I'm sure we all have a pretty good idea why that is, but I'd love to hear that from you.
Sure. Yeah. And I want to give hope here.
Yeah.
Because people get so frustrated. So I'll talk about it in terms of what it takes to have it stop being an obstacle. What it takes is for a woman who feels like she's holding more than her fair share, holding more than works well for her. And that's the thing to know, is that regardless of who makes how much money, how many hours each of you works, if you're doing too much for you to be well, for you to sleep well, for you to have time for yourself, for you to connect with friends, then you're doing too much. The labor isn't split equitably. You're not able to sustain what you're doing and be well. And as a woman, you're the hearth of the home. It's your well-being that gives light and warmth and energy to everybody else. There's that saying, mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. And it's true. It's like your well-being is the well. Think about that term. You are the well from which everyone draws sustenance. And so if we can think about it in that way, it's not being selfish to try to offload some of this labor. So that attitude is the starting place. And the lack of that attitude is a big reason why these inequities persist. So if we start to see, that it's of service to everybody for me to not be overloaded, then we can start to think about, how can it be of service to someone else, say in a heterosexual marriage, my husband, to do more, and probably your kids too. Probably and I have a 14-year-old and an 11-year-old at home. I am teaching them all the time to do more for themselves, not just to get things off my shoulders, but because there is humanity and there is skillfulness in our being able to contribute to the family. So when a male partner changes diapers, when they understand everything that goes into soccer, when they're intimately acquainted with their child's homework and their schooling needs, they're closer to that person, and that pays dividends for a lifetime. So in a way, women have been hogging the juicy relational parts. I know it feels like work and often it's a drag, and in the aggregate, it's too much. But as we divide it out, we have more intimacy across the family because more people get to touch into those nitty-gritty details that are, in essence, our life.
Mm. That all makes so much sense, right? There's a lot of common sense in that. If we share the burden, if we share the load, it lightens our load, and everyone feels like they're contributing, and that's a good thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's a good thing. My little kitty cat is trying to
Yeah. But
join us.
for a lot of men at first, it's just like, babe, I'm doing too much already. I'm overloaded too.
Yeah.
Can't help. Sorry. Wish I could. He's just like, I'm full up. And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
having to
And
see it.
so how to, yeah. So figuring that out is, so it occurs to me, this just takes figuring out the way to communicate about this
Mhm.
and come to negotiate, right? Come to an equitable agreement. And maybe there are some things that we don't need to do anymore.
That's right. Yeah. Right. We've got that notion at work, like do, dump, delegate. Yeah. Dumping is definitely an option,
It's
and
definitely
deferring.
an option.
I'm
Yeah.
going to save this for a different season of our lives.
Okay. So what assumptions fuel our thinking as women as we try to do it all?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one of the biggest ones that was a huge relief to me to learn, and that many of my clients benefit so much from, is that our success at this to-do list at home is not a moral issue. You're getting the laundry done, you're filing this thing on time, or getting your kid into the right summer camp, that you have to register for at midnight, and all those squirrely things that we're trying to do these days. You're flawlessly executing all that does not make you a better person. It is not the measure of your worth as a human. And the places where you think you're failing at that are not measures of your moral failure. They don't make you less. All of these things are our ambitions, and we are socialized to be super ambitious in these things, to think of them as measures of our worth. And those assumptions make us crazy, exhaust us. They have us overextended. So when we can unplug from that assumption, then we can start to see some of the other assumptions. That I said, Eve calls it the she fault, the presumption that I should do it unless we decide otherwise, that it starts on my plate and then maybe I have to negotiate to get it off. So in couples, there are a lot of couples that say that they're feminist couples. They say that they value equality, and yet these assumptions still preside. So I invite couples to look at that. What things do you assume she will do, and what things do you assume he will do, and why? Where did you learn that? We've got many years of precedence, and many of them started in a time when, if you had the privilege for it, if you could financially afford it, only the man would have a job outside the house, and the woman would do all the jobs inside the house. And maybe that made sense then. But that's not who you and I are talking to today. So recognizing where they came from and creating our own value system around it is really crucial.
I'm so glad you said that, because it is so important for us to evaluate those assumptions, the beliefs, that we've grown up with, in order to evaluate them, we have to be aware of that they exist, where they come from, and then just ask the question, is it, do I believe, does it serve me now? That's a good way
That's
to
what
put
I
it,
think.
right?
Yeah.
Does it serve me now to continue to hold that belief or that assumption? And if it doesn't, you get to choose to change it. And
Yes.
hopefully in conversation with the other people in your life, so that you can have that more equitable uh, division of labor.
Yeah. And a more uh, wellness grounded
Yeah.
set of standards.
For everyone.
Yeah, who does it serve for you to presume what you presume about how you have to look every day, or how elaborate your kids' birthday parties have to be, or
Right.
what
Right.
kind of college you have to send them to? Who's being served by these presumptions? Really great to ask.
Yeah. Yep. All right. You just mentioned standards. I know I hold myself to a very high standard. I suspect most of the women we're talking to today do as well. But how do we create those reasonable expectations of ourselves and others when we are maybe used to being disappointed?
Hmm. Hmm. Great question. That's so central to so many of the conversations that I have with people about this. Like, yeah, I would turn this over, but my partner's not going to do it to the standard that I need it done to. So then I wind up
Right?
going back and redoing it, or
Or
we
never
fight about
handing
it.
it off to begin with,
We're never
right?
fighting. Yeah, there's lots of bad scenarios that
Nobody
come
can
out.
do it as well as I
Right.
do, so it's
Yes.
mine. Yeah.
Yeah. And I do think that nobody can do it as well as I can do. That may be true. And
Mhm.
anyone who has gotten to a certain level at work has known that they had to let go
Yeah.
of that presumption. And it's even when it might be true. No one will do it as well as you would, but will they do it well enough? And if you can hand it off to them, does it allow you to do the higher level things that are actually things only you can do? So I definitely work with clients on that at work. Like, while you're doing a job that somebody else could do well enough, who's doing your job? Your real job, the highest level stuff you're capable of. So when you start doing that, you start to accept, like, oh yeah, they're doing it like 95% as well as I would. Good enough.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
they're doing it differently, and it might actually be better, even though it's not how I would do it. And that takes some humility to admit. So we bring those skills home, and we
Right.
look
It
at,
it it takes some humility, and it takes just an openness
yes,
and a willingness to allow others to find their own way of doing something that we used to do our way, and
yeah.
being okay with that
Right. Or maybe being uncomfortable, but being
for a
okay with
while.
that. Exactly. Knowing that this isn't forever. But at home, just as at work, we create, standard operating procedures, or a real
Yeah.
clarity about what is the outcome we're looking for here. What does good enough look like? And can we agree on that? At home, we can look at, what would a reasonable third party think is good enough? Is the kitchen clean enough that it's not attracting pests? That's important. Pretty much anyone would see that, that matters. Is it so clean you could serve the whole dinner off the counter? Maybe not. Or, whatever standard you may have had, uh, we want to create a minimum standard of care. That's an Eve Rodsky term that says, can we agree upon how, no matter who's doing it, this is the baseline? And then the person who may have a higher standard than that will need to, like, chill about
Mm.
any gap between the minimum standard and their own standard. And anyone whose standard may be lower than the minimum standard, if left to their own devices, will agree that they will rise to the agreed upon minimum standard for this particular area.
What a great idea. Agreeing on a minimum standard of care. I love that. And that's all part of the negotiation.
Yeah.
That's all part of the conversation that you have with, you have that at work,
Right.
right? We do that as leaders. We set certain expectations and we expect them to be met because it's the minimum standard.
Yes.
So having a similar approach at home makes a whole lot of sense. We do that with our kids too, don't we? As
Yeah.
we're teaching them.
And I think most of us do a better job with our kids than we do with our spouses. And definitely we do a better job at work. So,
Yeah.
when someone at work, the first time they've done something, doesn't perform to the minimum standard of care that you thought you conveyed effectively and you thought they had everything they needed to do it, what do? Do you go and yell at them, take it back, say, forget about it, I'm sorry I even asked,
Right.
or attribute it to them not wanting to do it anyway and deliberately sabotaging it? You do not. But all
Right.
of those are things that people commonly do at home the first time they try to hand something off. So I try to help my clients see those things coming. That just when it comes to your spouse, you're so hungry to be met, to be held, to be partnered with, that the disappointment when the inevitable bumps in the road come, that disappointment fuels some poor behavior on your part a lot of times. And so if we can kind of regulate ourselves, pull it back and say, this is a learning curve. I've done this before professionally. I've done it as a mother. We can get through this. If we slow it down, then they create success over weeks and months.
Yeah, it is. There is no switch to flip here. It doesn't happen overnight, like anything else.
Right.
Like any change that we are trying to orchestrate anywhere in our lives. It takes time, it takes practice, it takes patience, it takes diligence.
It takes
It takes,
celebration.
I'm
Like,
sorry,
it takes celebration.
it takes
We
celebration,
look for,
right?
like, what was, if they didn't do it even halfway well. Well, did they do it 10% well? Celebrate that. Celebrate what is a baby step forward. Look for
Right.
that, shine sunshine on it, amplify it, because it will grow.
And I think we always have to remember to give ourselves grace and to give others grace, right?
Yeah.
This may not be, this is new. This is a new mode of operating for many families,
Yeah.
couples.
Yeah. And I
It's
love
a,
that you said give her grace, like give yourself grace, and you get to have a place to vent. Like, I can't believe that he did it that way. What is he thinking? That is so stupid. Like, you get to say that, but to me or to a friend, don't say that to
right,
him. That's
right.
not the place to start. If you want to actually be able to partner and have things really be, from planning through conception to execution, really be on his plate, you cannot barf that on him.
Right,
But you
right.
do get to feel it.
Yeah. The word emasculated comes to mind.
Right.
A lot of men feel that way when we don't leave our work mode at work and we're barking orders, or we've decided that he's going to do something and it doesn't get done to our standard because maybe we haven't done the work to create that minimum standard of care. I think that's such a brilliant idea.
It's a marriage saver.
I think so. I think it probably is. I wish I'd known it some time ago. No, it wouldn't have saved mine. Now that I think of it, it was
It's
a
not a
bigger
cure-all.
problem than that. But anyway, we won't go there today. All right. So, you know what? This makes me think of minimum standard of care, makes me think about how we have nutritional recommended daily allowances of things, right?
Yeah.
So we understand that when it comes to supplementing our bodies. But what are some of the non-nutritional recommended daily allowances that we have as busy, powerful women?
Yeah. But, the thing I start with is sleep. I think that sleep is so underrated, and we tend to trade it off. We just think of it as wasted time when we're really in overload and stuck in our heads, like you and I have been talking about. So that's where I often have women start. because it so changes how everything else looks and feels to us when we're underslept. And I wear an Aura ring. You can get, like your Apple Watch will track your sleep. There's lots of devices that can help you actually get real with how much sleep you're getting and the timing of it, because it makes a huge difference. And I'm looking at longevity, and I try to help people have what I call the 100-year marriage. That's a whole other topic for a whole other podcast. But looking at your sleep is a great place to start. Other things that I believe women need are orgasms. You have a recommended daily allowance for orgasms. It's unique to you, but I really believe that your pleasure and having that place where you can kind of just drop down into a pleasant sensation and ride that is a beautiful way to hit the reset button and remember that you are not a human doing, you're a human being. And you were built for pleasure. That's why you have 8,000 nerve endings in your clitoris. You are made for this. And that can be with your partner or not. We all need stillness. I teach clients to have a meditation practice, some sort of way to get quiet inside and be able to observe the workings of their own mind. We all need movement. Our brains need it. Our mitochondria need it. So making space, even if it's just once an hour, getting up and doing some squats, doing some jumping jacks. That's kind of how it often works in my day. We all need friends. We all need to be heard and to be of service, that reciprocity in our friendships. In addition to the fun, I guess that's another one, is laughter. We all need to laugh, that belly laugh, that I have with certain friends. And if I don't make sure that I get it, it doesn't happen in the course of my everyday. There might be a chuckle here or there, but really truly letting loose and enjoying yourself. And then I think we all need a creative outlet. Eve has another book about this called Unicorn Space. We need a place where we are making and doing something that's creative, a time that's just for us to explore something new. And when we have that, we kind of come alive in a way that we don't when we've lost track of that. And I bet everybody listening can remember something that they used to do that felt like that, whether it was dance or pottery or painting. It might be cooking for fun for you, or it might be something that you do for service, but it's your unicorn space, and we all need that.
Boy, you hit on some really good stuff, but here's what I want everybody to really hear. You're talking about a recommended daily allowance of this stuff, of all of this good stuff, starting with enough sleep every single day. That's not always easy to do. And the pleasure. I resonate highly with the laughter. It's essential in my life. Thank the good Lord. I'm married to an Irishman who thinks a lot of things are funny. And he does make me laugh every day. And if that doesn't happen, I miss it. So thinking about what are of those things and whatever else in each one of our listeners' lives, what is it that if you had it every single day, you would be on the road to having a thriving life, because everything else kind of falls into place. Am I right about that?
Yeah, or is easier to deal with. You might still have headaches. My clients are very busy, very high stress. They're holding a lot of pressures, especially right now. The economy is challenging. They're having to make very difficult decisions every day. So I won't say everything is duck soup, but what it means, if you are well pleasured, well rested, and you're getting your laughter in, you know yourself as something beyond your career, and you feel that groove, there's almost like a dance to it, then you can walk into those challenging situations with some verve that is lacking if you're giving everything up for that same career. You don't have the same juice. You don't have I think of it like cartilage. You're kind of bone on bone. And that's how a lot of people come to me. And if I say those RDA kinds of things to them, they're like, you don't get it. You don't understand my life. And I say, actually, I'm pointing to the life that you can craft for yourself if you will have the courage to break out of the presumption that you just putting yourself through the grinder is the thing that your work needs from you, is the thing that's going to ensure your career, because it won't. That will actually ensure burnout.
Exactly. Yes.
And that's what they tend to say. They recognize, they're like, oh yeah, I'm already well on my way.
I'm there already. Yeah.
They get it.
And if they've gone too far into burnout, it's a journey to get back out of it. But the key here is, if you're in a soul-sucking role at work, there are things you can do for yourself and at home that will help to bring more harmony in at least one part of your life, so that you are more equipped to handle the other part of your life that is just sucking the juice right out of you. Yeah, this is really good conversation. I know that it's enlightened me in a couple of ways. I'm sure it has for our audience today as well. And you've left some tips for us along the way. You've just sprinkled them throughout. But I would love for you to just give us some key takeaways from this, Michele, so that, maybe there's some things that we can put into practice right away.
Yeah. There's 3 things that I would love for people to remember. Okay. First, whenever you want something different in any relationship, make a request rather than a complaint, and ensure that your request includes a sincere question that asks, how can I contribute to you doing what I'm asking for?
Oh,
yeah.
I love that. I love that. It's simple.
Yeah.
Just
they all are.
Instead of tell,
don't complain.
Right? Instead of tell, ask.
Yeah. And instead of talking about what's wrong, talk about what you actually want. Talk about what success would look like.
What do you need? Right?
Yeah. And say,
what do you need? Ask for what you need. And I love but the second part of that is, how can you participate in making that happen?
Yep. What do you need from me to give me what I need from you?
Love that.
Yeah. How am I, the opposite of that is, how am I getting in the way of you doing that? And then,
right. Yeah.
because we probably are.
Yeah.
The second thing I'd love for people to leave with is, honor the truth that everybody needs downtime at home, and trading off sleep to get it is not a sustainable solution. We often stay up late to, watch our show, or scroll through social, or write that email to our mom. And those things are important. And I want to see you front load them. So dividing labor is an important way to do that. We need to divide our labor in such a way, and we need to honor each other's needs in such a way that everybody gets a break, so that they can be their best at work and at home. And that's something that I often teach couples, is that men come home and often their partners know what they want from them right away. So you walk in the door and your partner's like, do this, do this, do this, or, take the baby, or whatever is going on. They have to be on. And so often men, or their partners, expect that. Often men need to get that break on the way home, take some space for themselves, or negotiate with their partner, like, I'm going to go into my study or into the bedroom and take 15 minutes. And when I come out, I'm going to be fully available. And during that time, I'm going to reset myself. So we all need that, and we need to honor that need in each other.
And it goes back to tip number 1, right?
Yeah.
Be sure to ask for what you need, or let people know what you need. And this goes for everybody. Even the children in our lives need space. Everyone need.
That's right.
And
kids
at
can't
work,
do homework right when they get home from school. They need a snack and to chill, and then they can do it.
Right. Yeah. Just to reset.
That's right.
Good ones. Okay. What's tip number 3?
Remember that as a leader, your own work-life balance equation is the model by which your team will measure themselves. So think of your balanced priorities not as being this self-serving, duty shirking thing you're doing because you're selfish or you can't hack it, but you're doing it from a principled place because you value aliveness, not just productivity. And you know that productivity without aliveness inevitably leads to burnout. So it's a service to everyone who's watching you to craft balance, from your kids to your partner to your team to your community. You are part of the change that our culture so badly needs, to valuing human life, not just commercial output.
Mm. That's a powerful one. Not so easy, but a powerful one. When we understand that we are watched, we are seen by everyone in our lives, and if we model the behavior that we want to see in others, then it's a much clearer message, isn't it?
Yeah, we teach way better by what we do than anything we're trying to impart with our words.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's why they say, walk the talk, right? Yeah. Michele, this has been a great conversation. There's so much good stuff here. I really appreciate your being with us.
Oh.
And those tips are gold.
Well, it's my hope that everyone enjoys the conversation as much as I have, and that as hard as some of these things might be to hear, I know that they're harder to implement than they are to talk about.
Yeah.
And I have walked that path myself.
Yeah.
So none of this is glib or pat answers. I know these are difficult to implement, but we are in the middle of a revolution here. And we as women must lead it if it is to happen, because we are the ones absorbing the cost. Back to the top when we talked about invisible labor, these problems are invisible to other people. We have to make them visible and be the solution by changing things that feel unchangeable and having the courage to do that one step, one day at a time. So my heart is with you as you endeavor to implement these. And Maria, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it is my pleasure. I've loved this conversation, and I know, and I am on board with you about, if we don't change it, it won't change. We see a lot, we take on a lot, and we can share a lot if we just have the conversations and ask for what we need. Yeah, really important. Michele, I know a lot of people are going to want to reach out to you. So tell us what the one best way is to do that.
Yeah, you can go to my website at lisenbury.com, lisenbury.com. And that same spelling of my last name is useful on Instagram. My first name, Michele, with just one L, Lisenbury, is my handle on Instagram. And that's another great place to reach me.
That's fabulous. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you, Maria.
And for everyone else who is watching or listening, I appreciate that you're a part of our community. And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a comment, click a star, let us know what you think about what you're hearing. And as I said at the top of the show, I love creating and sharing resources for women. Plus, as a life coach and a career coach, I work with women to help them navigate challenging times more quickly and gracefully. So if something in this episode resonates with you and you'd like a fresh perspective, reach out. Let's talk. The links to connect with Michele and me are in the show notes below. And I invite you to continue this conversation in my private Facebook group, The Career Transition Roadmap. So again, look for the links for that below. And let's meet again here next Wednesday, as always, because you know what? I believe it's our time to thrive. So let's thrive together. Till next time, I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan, helping you turn transition into triumph.